Introducing Clarendale Clayton, an innovative new luxury senior lifestyle community featuring independent living, assisted living, and memory care. Coming soon to the corner of Clayton and Hanley.
We're beginning here. Thank you so much. We had a little technical difficulty earlier, and we thank everybody for your patience. Sorry, we are really looking forward to talking to Arnold Donald with those great St. Louis connections, and now, of course, the CEO of Carnival Corporation, the world's largest leisure travel corporation. And we have lots to talk about, especially as we expect the cruise season to kick off at some point after what happened last year. Special thanks before we begin this edition of our At Home series with the Clayton Community Foundation, that we want to thank our friends at Clarendale Clayton, senior living, luxury senior living, and our presenting sponsor for this At Home series. Well, what can we say about the Clayton Community Foundation? We were started in 2008, nonprofit partner with the city of Clayton, focused on creating significant change and improvements to our entire area in the area of arts and history, parks, and sustainability. The good folks at the Clayton Community Foundation have raised more than $10 million since 2008. And our next project, which is really exciting, is a new literary themed playground just east of the library on Maryland. And also want to point out that the Ralph Clayton Society honors donors who've given annual support of $1,000 or above to the Clayton Community Foundation. Society members are generous leaders in supporting the annual fund and committed to the Clayton community. Let me see if Arnold Donald is with us right now, because the way this is working right now, I think he's in our viewing audience, and we're trying to promote Mr. Donald to panelists.
Can you hear me, Charlie?
I can indeed, and thank you so much for your patience. I'm sorry for our technical difficulties earlier, Mr. Donald. How are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. Where do we find you on this Thursday?
This Thursday, I'm in Beverly Hills, California.
Well, there are worse places. I mean, if you can't be in Clayton, Missouri, Beverly Hills is a good second best.
Yeah.
What can we say about you? But right now, you as the CEO of Carnival are in charge of the Princess Cruise Line, the Holland America Cruise Line, Seabourn, P&O, Costa Cruises, Aida Cruises, Cunard, 87 ships the last time I counted. And it all started in New Orleans' 9th Ward. Is that correct?
Yes, it did, Charlie. So, hey, first of all, good evening to you. Good evening to all your listeners. I'm glad to be with you. And yeah, it all started in New Orleans. I was born in New Orleans. I'm in the 9th Ward, which has gotten a lot of coverage lately for different things. It's been in a number of movies and so on, not about me, but about the 9th Ward. And a number of series. I guess there's an HBO series, Your Honor. And
Yes.
it talks a lot about the Lower Nine and the Desire area where I grew up. But yeah, I was born there and raised in New Orleans.
And as a matter of fact, not too long ago, your high school, St. Augustine, was profiled on 60 Minutes because it has an out-of-the-world marching band that has received international recognition. And I didn't know until recently that you're a proud alum of that school.
A proud alum and a proud alum of the Marching 100 of the band. And
wow.
So I was in the Marching 100. My marching was much better than my musicianship. But nonetheless, I played alto sax in the marching band, the symphonic band, and the jazz band. And it was a great time. But it is a great band. It's world-renowned, and it's an icon for Mardi Gras. But the school is a special little school. It's all boys, all Black, Catholic private school. And we've had, I don't know, over 44 guys in the NFL, football players, and several players in the NBA. Avery Johnson is one of the guys who's a coach and well-known NBA basketball player. A lot of business people. The current editor for the New York Times, Dean Beckett, is also a graduate of St. Augustine. And so the school, is a great school, still is, and it's produced, just a lot of people in different walks of life, and lots of folks in New Orleans, judges and so on and so forth, and politicians and what have you. So it's a great little place.
Did you learn any lifelong lessons at St. Augustine?
Oh, absolutely. So 3 times a day, they would tell us back when I went, which was a long time ago, before you were even born, Charlie, long time ago. They would tell us 3 times a day, gentlemen, prepare yourselves, you're going to run the world. And so they taught us that there was the old Vince Lombardi quote, it's not the will to win, it's the will to prepare to win. So it's all about preparation and discipline. And also, they taught you to listen. And I've taken that through me all the way through life. Listen, listen, listen. If you listen closely enough, the world will reveal itself to you. If you're in business, your customers, in our case, our guests, will tell you what it's going to take to exceed their expectations. Your employees will tell you what it's going to take to have them motivated and totally committed to the goals of the company. And your stakeholders, your partners, will tell you what you need to do to be an effective partner, et cetera. So listen, listen, listen.
What brought you to St. Louis?
What brought me to St. Louis actually was Washington University. So my junior year in high school, I decided I was going to be a general manager in a Fortune 50 science-based global company, which is pretty funny because nobody in my family was in business at all. And at that time, I probably had no idea what that was. But somebody obviously brainwashed me along the way through school, and I decided I was going to do it. So I mapped out a plan to do it. And part of my plan was to get 2 undergraduate degrees, liberal arts degree in econ, which I did at Carleton College. And then I wanted an engineering degree because science-based global company, I need a technical degree. And I had thought about going different places, but anyway, Washington University in St. Louis recruited me. I ended up doing my engineering work at WashU, and that's what's first brought me to St. Louis. And while there, I was assistant to Dean McKelvey, which now the engineering school carries his name because his son was one of the creators of Square, and made a significant donation to the university, and was kind enough to name the engineering school after his dad. So I was assistant to him, and doing that, I ended up landing a summer job with Monsanto Company. And then I built my career. I ended up doing a summer job, then I went permanent employment with Monsanto while I did my MBA. And I ended up, becoming an executive at Monsanto over the years and accomplished my objective of being a general manager in a Fortune. It wasn't a Fortune 50, but Fortune 100 at the time, I believe, global science-based company.
That's truly amazing. And speaking
It is amazing, actually.
When we talk about the Fortune 500, I read in April, as of April, in all of history, there have only been 19 African-American CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. You're one of them.
Yeah. Well, the challenge there is I am one of them and proud to be, but I have to tell you, it's a bit disappointing because there are probably fewer African-American CEOs of major corporations today, Fortune 500, than there were even 10 years ago. And the number has been stagnant. There's always a handful since the, 80s or 90s. But, there's always only a handful. And there's actually fewer now, I believe, than there were, say, 10, 15 years ago.
That's not good. But if one were to look for a silver lining with the St. Louis connection, I think David Stewart of Worldwide Technology also has had that title. Now, I'm not sure. Is Worldwide Technology Fortune 500?
It probably wouldn't be Fortune 500, although David is a tremendous success and is listed amongst the wealthiest people in the world. So he's done very well, and his company does great work. And they may be now. They may be at that stage because he's private. He might not be listed in the publicly traded company listing. But he may be of that scale in revenues now. I've lost track of his revenues, but he's done exceedingly well and deservedly so.
You were a senior vice president at Monsanto, and there probably were not many minority senior vice presidents at Monsanto through the years.
No, there weren't. When I was there were a few, though. It was David Price, who was a good friend and was a mentor of mine, and Milt Wilkins, another friend, and so when I was coming up, there were a few of us, but it was only, again, a handful. But it was still, Monsanto was progressive. They gave me plenty of opportunity and support, as they did with David and Milt and others. And I have a lot of love for, the former Monsanto Company, because they did a lot of great things in the community, and certainly inspired me and gave me opportunity.
And I believe you became the head of Merisant, which I believe gave us the artificial sweetener, correct?
Yeah, what happened was Monsanto, GD Cyril and Company up in Chicago, originally had the Equal business, and then we were purchasing their pharmaceutical business. This was something Jack Hanley and Dick Mahoney, Richard Mahoney, who was CEO when I really rose up through the ranks, who was another fantastic human being. And so we acquired NutraSweet and then the pharmaceutical business from GD Cyril as part of the switch over from industrial chemicals to life sciences for Monsanto. And when that business came in, originally I had nothing to do because I was an agricultural company. I became, co-president of the agricultural sector inside Monsanto. But eventually I ended up taking responsibility for the business and both the tabletop and the ingredient business. And I was charged with divesting them. And one thing led to another. And a good friend of mine I met at Washington University Engineering School, Andy Bursky, who's along with me is now on the board of trustees at the Washington University. But he was a private equity guy, and we were going to sell the business. And at the time, for the business folks out there, the high yield market was in the tank, and so I gave him 45 days and no financing contingency, but a really good deal. And he said, Arnold, if I go and tell my partners we got to buy this business for this price with 45 days and no financing contingency, because my friend tells me it's a good deal, they're gonna laugh me out the room. He said, you got to give me more than that. He said, why don't you come with me? Everybody knows you, and if you come with me, they'll know it's a legitimate deal. And I said, no, Andy, no way. So one thing led to another, and I ended up going with him, and we did the deal. And that's when I took Equal Sweetener, the tabletop product, out of Monsanto, and we formed Merisant, which we ran for a while as a private equity venture. And it was a great experience and a good return for the investors.
You were on the table of almost every restaurant in the United States and probably beyond.
Yep, it was global. We had 19 brands and 100 and something countries. Canderel is the brand over in Europe. We own that, and in parts of Latin America, and we had several other brands in Australia and other places. So, no, it was great fun. We had a good time.
Just curious, how do you take your coffee?
I take my coffee. It has to be decaf, number one. But I take decaf coffee, brewed preferably than the powder, but whatever. And I'll take it with Equal sweetener, and okay. And that's it. So I prefer the taste of Equal. It's one of the most studied ingredients in the history of the food industry. And it's phenylalanine is the basic ingredient, which is and it's an amino acid, one of the basic building blocks of life. And so it doesn't have a big it doesn't have an aftertaste. And it was registered as a flavor enhancer, so not as a sweetener. And what it does is it cuts the acidity. So it makes coffee taste more like coffee, makes fruit, strawberries, whatever, taste more like the fruit. And it just cuts the acidity, which interferes with the taste. And that's what it is. So anyway, so that's the story on Equal, but
Boy, how interesting. And I know that when you became the CEO of Carnival Corporation, there were many people, of course, in our area who wished you the best, but you had done so much in the not-for-profit world and in fundraising, and you and your family had been to so many events and been so generous. I think you probably know that. Do you still have a residence in Clayton or elsewhere in the greater St. Louis area?
Absolutely. I still have my home in St. Louis, and I'm in St. Louis frequently. I'll be there next week, so I still frequent St. Louis, and then I have family in town now. Some of them moved up after Hurricane Katrina from New Orleans, and so I have some immediate family in the area as well. So I'm in St. Louis, but we still have our residence in St. Louis.
Fantastic. What do you miss about living in St. Louis on a regular basis?
The people. It's always about the people. So I don't get to see my friends as often. A number of institutions, as you mentioned, I was engaged with a lot of the not-for-profit institutions in the area. And so while I stay connected to them, like I'm on the board of Washington University, for example, I had to drop a lot of those. And some of the local companies I was on the board of, I had to drop that. So I just miss seeing the people as often and not being as engaged with a number of the institutions as, I've been in the past. But, life continues, and there's little doubt in my mind at some point I'll be spending more time in St. Louis again, and I look forward to that.
Sounds good. Well, I think, as you can imagine, when I talk to people, I hear about a pent-up demand to travel. And
Yes.
Many people are talking about the future of cruising, and they hope the future of cruising is tomorrow. What can you tell us about our ability to go to the Caribbean or Asia or Europe or anywhere else on one of Carnival Corporation's cruise ships?
Well, what I can tell you is we are currently sailing with two of the brands. You mentioned them all. Thank you for that. AIDA and Costa. AIDA is our German brand, and Costa our continental European brand with an Italian theme. And the bottom line is both of those have some limited sailings now, but we've announced 7 of our 9 brands will resume cruising by July, by the middle of July, mainly in the UK, in Greece. Seabourn has announced, that's our ultra luxury brand. Seabourn has announced sailings in Barbados starting in August. And then we're, working every day with the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, and then all the other agencies, HHS, Department of Transportation, the Commerce Department, the White House COVID response team. So we're working with everybody to try to get cruising out of the U.S. To start this July. And so there've been a lot of announcements and a lot of proclamations, but it's still a work in process. Time is running out, but we're going to get there, hopefully. Also, we're going to be able to go to Alaska. There's a lot of communities in Alaska that are totally dependent on cruise, and we're number 1 in Alaska with Holland America and Princess. We also own the land resorts there, 10 land resorts there, and we own a railroad there, and we own most of the buses and all the things necessary to do excursions. So if you want to go to Alaska, you should be going with Holland America or Princess. And we like to be able to go to Alaska, so that decision has to be made pretty quickly in terms of what's going to be required to be able to cruise. But what I will commit to is that, number 1, we're only going to do what's in the best interest of public health. Number 2, we're only going to do an experience that resonates with our guests so that the guests have a great experience. And in those early cruises, the limited ones we have done in Europe, our net promoter score, guest satisfaction scores, are amongst the highest we've ever had. And so that means even with all the protocols in place, universal testing at the time, mask wearing, physical distancing, enhanced sanitation protocols, enhanced medical screening protocols, enhanced hair handling protocols. With all of that, the guests still felt like they had a great cruise experience. And so we want to make certain that people cruise this by choice. It's a leisure activity. And we want to make certain that the experience still resonates with the guests. And we commit to those 2 things, acting in the best interest of public health and making certain that people have a great cruise experience.
And is the vaccination going to be required for all passengers as well as cruise members?
So, vaccinations are a total game changer, as you well know, Charlie. And so we encourage everyone to get vaccinated. We just encourage everyone to do it. Science says that if you are vaccinated, you have dramatically reduced, all but eliminated, the risk of being hospitalized or worse from the effects of contracting COVID. You may still get COVID, but the chances you're going to have to be hospitalized or have long-term effects or worse have been pretty much eliminated if you get vaccinated. That's with any of the vaccines that are approved by FDA or World Health Organization. So given that, we encourage everyone. Having said that, what the CDC has indicated in their early framework, and we're still talking with them, is that if there are cruises with 98% of the crew vaccinated and 95% of the guests vaccinated, then you don't have to go through simulated voyages before having commercial voyages. And so there's a certain criteria there that if you are at that level of vaccination on the ship, you can bypass a step in the CDC, process to restart. Now we're working on all that. Whether that continues or doesn't continue, we'll see. We're not mandating people are vaccinated anywhere yet, but we do have some selected sailings, for example, in the UK, in Greece, and others that we've announced that are for people who are vaccinated. So it's elective for individuals to say, hey, I only want to go on a cruise where everybody or nearly everyone is vaccinated. So we have some sailings like that. But we will also have sailings, that don't require everyone to be vaccinated. At this time, those haven't been approved anywhere around the world, except we have sailed in Italy and Germany with nobody vaccinated, even during the peak of the pandemic. And so all those other protocols we put in place, ourselves and the industry collectively have sailed almost 400,000 guests during the period of time, with only 50 cases of COVID identified. And when those occurred, they were handled seamlessly and so on. That's with no one vaccinated. So we do have some, coming up that are going to be for those who only want to sail in with others who are vaccinated. But we will be sailing more broadly as soon as we get approval here in the US, and we will be doing it more broadly elsewhere in the world.
Well, I understand the conversations with the CDC have been lively, but what we're really talking about is about 200,000 workers are associated with your corporation alone.
Yeah, we have about 150,000 plus employees pre-COVID. But I tell you, the real impact isn't that. Just in the US, there's over 500,000 jobs tied to the cruise industry. It's said that one job on a cruise ship is equal to 5 to 7 jobs in the rest of the economy. When I say equal, it creates 5 to 7 jobs in the rest of the economy. So if you think about it, it's the port workers, it's the taxi drivers, the Uber drivers, it's tour guides, it's all the travel agent professionals who are so critical to our business and who have been champions through all of this. So there are so many jobs created, all the provisions, the restaurateurs, et cetera, et cetera. So there are just so many jobs tied to the cruise industry. So when it comes to job creation, we kind of outpunch our weight class as an industry. And so it's very important. And as I mentioned, Alaska, there are a number of communities in Alaska. I mean, their entire economic vitality is dependent on the cruise industry because it's hard to get to those places except by ship. And so given that, we are an important part of the economy here, but we're an important part of the global economy because it's true around the world. And I think that's the bigger impact. While obviously we care about our people and our employees, the fact is the impact goes way beyond that. And there are a lot of people who are dependent on the cruise industry, and assuming we can sail safely, which we've demonstrated we can, without any vaccinations. And now with vaccinations, we can certainly sail safely. It's important to get us back up and out on the seas.
I know, Mr. Donald, we're going to take some questions from our viewers, and people can do that either at Q&A or at chat. And we also have some questions for those who have joined us tonight, including this one. Have you been on a cruise? And you can answer that. I know you have, so you don't have to answer that one. And then the next question is, maybe you could answer this one. If you, Arnold Donald, could travel anywhere in the world today, where would you go? Maybe suggest something for the rest of us.
Well, the most fantastic cruise, and I've been on a lot of them, they're all great, that I've been on is actually Antarctica. If you've ever done a safari in Africa, if you've ever done that, more people have done that than have gone to Antarctica. There's a human spirit experience you have. I don't care what gender, what age, what nationality, what ethnicity, everybody feels it. when you see the migration, the great migration in Africa on the plains, there, the grasslands and the Masai Mara or wherever you might catch it. And it's just an amazing feeling. You get the same thing in Antarctica when you catch the sea migration in Antarctica, and it is the sea life, and you see everything, humpbacks, all types of seals, leopard seals, weddell seals, minke whales, along with the humpbacks, penguins and some. It's just the sea is full of life, and every iceberg is a piece of sculpture that has been created over hundreds of years, and everyone has its own color and its own design. It's just phenomenal to experience, and it's a human spirit lifting experience. And anyone you can talk to anyone that's taken one of the cruises to Antarctica, and they will tell you it's one of the most amazing things they've ever done in their life. So that would be my strongest recommendation. But if you don't have the time for that, or you're looking for something easier, then get in on any one of our brands: Carnival, Holland America, Princess, Seabourn, any one of them, doing a Caribbean cruise, or going to the Mediterranean or the Baltic, or going up to Alaska. They're all great.
Yes, I've been on Princess and Holland America, but you intrigue me with Seabourn when you say it's ultra luxury. And after all, this is a Clayton audience, so tell us, what makes Seabourn ultra luxury? What are appetites, will you?
Yeah, well, what makes Seabourn ultra luxury, you can look it up, but it's basically a yacht. So smaller ships, our largest ships in Seabourn carry about 600 guests. Everything's super high end. Thomas Keller, for those who know French Laundry or Per Se in New York, Thomas Keller is the chef on Seabourn. So we have a TK restaurant there. So everything's super high end. Accommodations are all suites. And the crew will know your name in a very short period of time if they don't know your name when you walk on. So it's just amazing accommodations, amazing food, highest end entertainment, and highest end accommodations, and highly customized, personalized travel experience.
And is the Caribbean open, or do you expect that to be open? Well, I guess relatively soon. It's not a summer destination generally, I'm guessing, but then again, it just might be. You tell us.
Well, for the Carnival brand, the summer's huge because we carry more kids on America Cruise Line, which is the Carnival line. We carry more kids than anybody, even more than Disney. And so we expect the Caribbean to be open this summer. Of course, it has to happen. But we are planning for it, and we have itineraries that people can book, and we're counting on it. And so we're hoping we can get everything worked out first with the CDC, so we can Carnival sails from 14 ports in the U.S. And so it's very much a U.S. based cruise line. So we're hoping we can get that, but also Holland America and Princess go, and Seabourn's going to go to Barbados, as I mentioned, in August at this point in time. So later in the summer, but still summer. And it could be they're going to have fantastic itineraries, going to various places like St. Lucia and the Grenadines, et cetera. It's just a tremendous itinerary. And because of the size of the ships, they're smaller ships, they can get into places a lot of larger ships can't. So you can have some pretty unique experiences.
We have some answers to our viewer poll, and it looks like more than 40%, 43% have been on a cruise ship more than twice. So that's neat.
Thank you all for cruising, and I hope you've cruised on one of my 9 brands at least once, and if not, I'm welcoming you to do that now.
Sounds good. And our next question: if you could travel anywhere in the world today, where would you go? Half said any place warm or tropical. Well, that makes sense. Especially, we've had a cold wave here in St. Louis, like you have no idea. I mean, seriously, last week at Straub's, everyone was wearing a winter coat. 21%, it's go figure. 21% want to go somewhere exotic or hidden. 7% want to go somewhere ancient, and 7% would like to visit an island.
Very good. Well, we have cruises where you could hit all of those at one time, which would be awesome. So we do have them. You just got to find the right itinerary. Yeah.
Well, do you offer those 100-day cruises or cruises that last a full year?
Yes, I do. We have cruises, not so much a full year, but that lasts, 4 or 5 months. World cruises, they sail around the world.
Isn't that
And
something?
that's Holland America and Seabourn, and does that. In particular, those two brands especially. We have other brands that you can do long segments, and then you can put a number of segments together. But we do have a number of around the world cruise offerings, and they're fantastic. People love them. They just absolutely love it. If you have the time, it's absolutely the way to see the world.
Well, let's get to the questions in just a moment. But do you have people around the United States who are living on your cruise ships? And if so, where do they pay their taxes? What state or what country?
Yeah, that's a great question. The answer is there are people who do that. They may not stay on one ship the whole time, but they go on a ship for a number of sailings, and then they'll move to another one, and then to another one. Some of the people on the world cruise, while they'll spend most of the time on that world cruise, and then they may take a number of other cruises. So all in, they may be at sea 10 months a year or 11 months a year. I'm sure there are some singular individuals that are at sea full time, moving around from one ship to another. Those are exceptions, and those people probably, if they're retired or whatever, they may not have a basis for tax in any one country. I know that happens in some places in Europe, where people spend time, and I know some individuals who I've come across who have yachts, and they take their yacht from one place to another, and they actually don't have a tax basis in any singular country.
Very interesting. What about for the lifelong learner, the person who wants to travel and also learn something in a cruise? Do you recommend one for our audience this evening?
There's several of those. Seabourn can be that. Holland America can be that. Princess can be that. Even Carnival, which is much more the fun brand, but absolutely, because wherever you go, what we do is we have crew from 145 countries, and our guests are from 190 countries across the brands. And so when you get on a cruise ship, you're going to meet people from all over the place, and you're going to go to destinations that maybe you haven't been to before. That's why a lot of people cruise. They want to go see a different place. And what happens is people discover what they have in common with people who are very different from them. And then they learn to celebrate the differences rather than to fear them. So, we help bring the world together, and it's the whole aspect of, once again, human spirit. But you can also, take a cruise into the Mediterranean, or you can take a Baltic cruise and go to St. Petersburg and learn about the history of Russia, or you can go to Greece and, ancient Greece and all the history there. So if you're a history buff, you can go again to Holland, to the Netherlands, and go to the Rijksmuseum, or one of the other museums there, and learn that. So the ships take you everywhere else. We were sailing to Cuba when we could, and that was a great learning experience for a lot of people. And of course, there's nature learning in Alaska, and as I mentioned, Antarctica and other places around the world. So there's so many opportunities and different ways to, if you're a lifelong learner, to experience the world, and you can definitely do that by cruise.
To the questions we go. Can Carnival allocate reservations like airlines do for reward programs for only a certain number of unvaccinated passengers? In other words, assuring at least 95% of those on board are vaccinated. I guess it would be an incentive for people to be vaccinated, I guess, and maybe some sort of rewards program.
Yeah.
Maybe something to consider.
Well, we definitely want to incentivize and motivate people to be vaccinated. There'll be a natural motivation, I think, because obviously the protocols will end up being slightly different for those who are vaccinated, or could be significantly different for those who are vaccinated, but for those who are not. What type of testing you're going to have to take, and so on and so forth. But also, once on board, there can be some differentiation for vaccinated because they're a lower risk profile than those who are not vaccinated. But everybody will have a good experience. But we do want to incentivize and help get people vaccinated, because we think that's best for them and it's best for society over time.
This next question comes from someone who is a former senior vice president at Seaborn, and it says the Seaborn crew is amazing, and that's what makes the ship successful.
Absolutely.
And this viewer also says, I understand you are quite good at gambling. Is that possible?
No, I'm actually not a gambler. But what happened was I started cruising way back when in the 70s, when I was working at Monsanto. I started cruising because I learned to count the cards in blackjack. And so the people that trained me told me, if you really want a good game, go on a cruise ship, because they're interested in people cruising, not so much making the money off the gaming. And then they said, now you can't win a lot because they put caps on everything, but you can practice counting and you'll win. So I went on cruise ships because I would play blackjack and I would count the cards. And back then, for those of you who game, it might be a 6-deck shoe or an 8-deck shoe, but they would deal down to half a deck sometimes. So if you were just doing a simple counting system, a plus minus counting system, eventually you would catch the deck and then you'll up your bets and you would win. So I would go on cruises, win enough money to pay for the cruise and take a little bit home with me. And that's how I started cruising years ago, before I ever was involved in the cruise industry. But now we don't do that. Now I run a real gaming operation on all my ships, and there's no way the dealer is going to deal down to a half a deck and a shoe in blackjack these days. I mean, they may deal a half a deck out before they reshuffle, but they're not dealing down to a half a deck.
Now, in the movies, two big guys would have escorted you to the door if they caught you counting the cards, right?
No, there wasn't. Again, I won thousands of dollars, but I wasn't winning big money. I mean, there were caps. There were caps on what I could win on the ships I went on anyway, and so there was no big risk for them to lose a lot, and it was an easy way for me to have some fun and practice a hobby. Yeah.
So no need to call Robert De Niro, but do you have a photographic memory?
No, I don't. And I'm bad at taking photographs too.
Our next question, is the World one of your boats? And do you have a condo boat? Or are you thinking of a condo boat?
The World is not one of ours. And no, we're not thinking of a condo boat. I'm not against it or anything, but it's just not what we do. What we do is we take lifelong learners, we take families, we take people seeking to have a good time and fun and experience new things. That's our business. We're not a condo kind of a business or a hotel per se business. We have hotels in Alaska, as I mentioned, but that's more so we can give people the land excursion experiences to see nature the way they want to. And so that's why we're situated, with the lodges we have. It's more to enhance the guest experience. I think that's a lifestyle some people would choose to do. And I think it's fine that those things exist, but it's not what we do.
Someone wants to know, obviously we don't have a French Laundry in Clayton, but do you have favorite places or restaurants in Clayton, Missouri that you can remember?
Of course I do. Cafe Napoli is kind of my stomping ground, along with Capitol Grill there in Clayton. And so between the two of those, if I'm in town, there's a good chance you'll see me in one or the other. But there's so many nice places in Clayton. And so over time, I try to hit them all. But my most frequented places are Cafe Napoli, my good buddy Tony there, and then Capitol Grill.
You did a lot of work with the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation. Is there a personal connection to that cause?
No, I ran JDRF for a number of years out of New York. Actually, I ran the national organization, the global organization. Frankly, I ran the entire thing for a number of years as a way to get back. Because after I retired early from Monsanto and Merisant, and I'd retired pretty early at age 50 at the time, before I got back into this. And so it was a phenomenal experience. But my connection came when I was at Monsanto through United Way. the St. Louis United Way campaign. As you know, St. Louis has always been one of the top performing United Way communities because the community in St. Louis is so giving. And at Monsanto, as a number of corporations, but Monsanto was a big corporate support of United Way. And so one year I led the Monsanto part of the campaign, which then I led the corporate campaign in St. Louis. And I had to adopt an agency. And I had a colleague, Carl Sestak, who's still with me, actually. We office together now there in Clayton. And so I have a personal office in Clayton too, by the way. My family office is 231 North Beamiston in Clayton. And so in any event, Carl and I, and Carl said, look, what about JDRF? I said, I'll be happy to do it. And that's when I got the first connection. And then many years later, I built a home and, we had people wanting to see the home. So I did a big fundraiser for juvenile diabetes. And the guy who was running at the time came, as did a number of other people. And I sat next to him and I grilled him. I said, you raise a couple of $100 million a year, every year for research. Tell me how you're using that money and what progress are you making? And, and I grilled him all night and he answered every question with patience and insight. And I thought, if I ever decide to do something again, that'll be something I would do. I thought that to myself. I had no idea. He was retiring the next day. He hadn't told anyone. And when he retired, he said, I think I found my replacement last night. And so I got a phone call from a guy, Jim Tyree, who was chair of the board at the time. Jim Tyree ran Mesro Financial up in Chicago. And I thought it was a joke. And one thing led to another, I ended up running JDRF. So that's how I got there. But it's a great organization. A strong presence in the St. Louis community. It does great work in trying to find a cure, but along the way in that effort to find a cure, it's tremendous support to the families and individuals with, just good practices. When I went there, we had just started something called the Closed Loop Artificial Pancreas Project. And now that is actually in the commercial space. And people are using it, and it allows you to have an automated system so you can sleep through the night and not be concerned about, having a sudden change that would require, intervention or hospitalization. So anyway, it's a tremendous organization.
And very interesting. And, a lot of research in that area has been conducted at your alma mater's medical school here in St. Louis.
Absolutely, at Washington University, absolutely.
Since you are the head of the world's largest leisure travel corporation, how about this? What do you recommend for St. Louis if it would like to jumpstart its leisure, hospitality, and tourism business? Any ideas just off the top of your head?
Well, St. Louis, has some natural draws that it's had for a long time. First of all, in the sports area, the Cardinals are a huge draw. And so once people come to a game, they want other things to do. And that's where St. Louis hits the grand slam. I mean, the art museum is one of the best art museums in the country. The zoo is one of the greatest zoos in the world. The botanical gardens may be the #1 botanical garden in the world. There's debates about them versus another, but I mean, the Science Center and then the History Museum. Then we have all of the entertainment venues, whether, as something more smaller, but impactful, like Opera Theater Company in St. Louis, which is absolutely one of the best, opera companies in the US and has produced original productions that have then gone on stage all over the world. So whether it's that or whether it's the Muni, et cetera. So there's just so many great institutions there. CASA, in terms of developing young talent and the performances they have there. So you could go on and on with St. Louis, and all of those things make anyone that's coming to St. Louis for any reason, whether it's for business, whether it's for sports, or whether it's just for leisure. There's many opportunities for people to have unique and great experiences in the St. Louis region.
Well, you've also lived all over the country. including St. Louis. St. Louis in recent years has lagged cities like Denver and Austin and Nashville when it comes to job and population growth. Any recommendations on how that might turn around?
Are you talking the city of St. Louis, or are you
Well,
talking
just
about the metropolitan region?
But the region.
Yeah, because the region may be lagging a little bit, but St. Charles community has grown tremendously. Clayton obviously is very vibrant where you're sitting right now. And the city of St. Louis certainly has had its challenges. And I think, we all need to stand, with the city to help, revitalize it. And I think there are many efforts to do that. St. Louis gets a little bad press every now and then. In the middle of all this social justice stuff, there was some incidents that occurred that put St. Louis, in the national stage in a negative light. But to be truthful, that could be said for a lot of communities around the world. And I think that, what we have to do is just continue to create opportunities for the people in St. Louis, that the citizens stand together, no matter what part of St. Louis they're in, to help the region raise its standards of social justice and behavior and inclusion and equity. And if we do those things together, then St. Louis will enjoy, continued prosperity. A number of new companies have evolved over time. Back when I started at Monsanto, there was no Centene, there was no Worldwide Technology. Now Centene and Worldwide Technology are two of the largest companies in the region. Monsanto was one of the largest companies. Now Bayer is there, has acquired the Monsanto business and so on. And so, there's St. Louis is vibrant. It has the latent potential to be even more vibrant. And I think if we all stand together and focus on the fundamental things of opportunity and education and quality of life for all, we'll see our region prosper.
Well, I will say it's very inspiring to hear you speak. And I know you went from the 9th Ward of New Orleans to become a CEO of a Fortune 500 company. Arnold Donald, do you have advice for a younger American who's starting out and thinking about going through the business ranks and trying to climb the corporate ladder or just the business ladder out there?
Yeah, a couple quick things. One is focus on your own passion. Find out where your passion is, and it's okay if you're not sure. I mean, it's fun to explore and discover things, but find out what you're passionate about and follow your passion, because whatever you choose to do, there are going to be obstacles. But if you're pursuing something you have passion for, the obstacles won't seem to be that daunting. If you're doing something you don't love, the obstacles will wear you down. And so, it's more about the journey than the destination, and make sure you're going after something you have passion for. And then, the last comment would be this: in our business, our highest responsibilities, and therefore our top priorities, always are compliance, environmental protection, and the health, safety, and well-being of our guests, of the people in the communities we touch and serve, and of our Carnival family. And that's the shipboard and shoreside personnel. And that's the foundation that we get to build on to help us have the freedom to operate, to exceed guest expectations, create joyful vacations, and in doing those things, create great returns for our shareholders. So any young person, do the right thing, be a great citizen, be a great corporate citizen first, and the rest will follow. If you focus too much on the other things without doing the fundamental things that are your highest responsibility and your top priorities for freedom to operate, you'll miss the boat.
When's your book coming out?
I don't know. Will you write it, Charlie? We'll see.
I'll read it. I would be the first in line to buy it. Thank you so much for joining us for the Clayton Community Foundation's At Home series. This was so enlightening, and we really appreciate someone of your stature. I mean, for you to join us, really can't thank you enough.
Come on, Charlie, thanks for what you do. This is part of making a community work, and thank you for what you do. Thanks to the listeners that are listening in. Please, hope to see you on a cruise soon, Charlie. And,
that's the plan.
And we hope to see all of your listeners as well. So thank you for the opportunity. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Arnold Donald, Really appreciate the time. The CEO of Carnival Corporation, and great guy who's still with connections here in St. Louis. And thanks to our friends at Clarendale Clayton for making this possible. Thank you, everybody. We'll be back next month with a woman from Clayton. She grew up on Aberdeen. No, maybe Arundel. Yeah, Arundel. Liz Jardina is now one of the top fashion designers in New York City. And she's going to join us on June 13th. Learn more at the Clayton Community Foundation website. Thank you, everybody, and have a wonderful evening.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you, sir.